welcome to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name is Jared Mello. Today, I want to go over the 3 stages of healing after narcissistic abuse. And these stages are in chronological order for a reason. And I want to go over what each stage looks like, some of the feelings you may feel in each stage. And I also see people try to weaponize true things that aren't very helpful, and I'll go over what I mean in a minute. But what is stage 1? Stage 1 is when you're either still in an abusive relationship or you're just leaving an abusive relationship. And in this stage, it is all about validating your own sense of reality, validating your perceptions, validating your gut, learning how to trust your intuition again, because the abusive person has probably been gaslighting you, making you think everything's your fault, you are to blame for everything, and you are the problem. They were eroding away your sense of self-worth, tearing you down, so you don't believe in yourself anymore. That's why in stage 1, it is very important to help people validate their own sense of reality, build up their belief in themselves again, because that's what they were not getting in the abusive relationship. They were getting torn down. They were getting gaslit, and it's a terrible feeling. And unfortunately, I see 2 things I dislike that happen in stage 1. People try to tell the other person, oh, you need to look at your side too. And I'm going to get to that, but that's a stage 2 concept. To tell somebody that in stage 1 is extremely unhelpful and invalidating for the reasons I just said. If you're being gaslit constantly and your sense of self-worth has been torn down and you've been belittled, it does not help to hear that in stage 1. The other thing I dislike hearing when someone's speaking to someone in stage 1 is, oh, your anger means you're not healed. Guess what? Anger at injustice is a very normal feeling and emotion. Being angry at what you've been through is a normal part of healing. It's one of the stages. You might also feel sadness, grief, or even annoyed at yourself for staying. But all of those things are very normal things to feel. But what else does stage 1 look like? When you're validating your reality, how are you doing this? You are doing this by learning all about narcissism. You're learning about toxic behaviors. You're learning about what you went through. And you're beginning to put a name to what you went through. And you're learning the concepts. You're learning what each thing meant. Oh, that was gaslighting. That was flipping the script. That was playing the victim. That was Jeb, a term I created, justifying, excuse-making, blame-shifting. Darvo, deny, accuse, reverse victim, and offender. All of these things are things you're learning, and it helps you. And in the beginning, you're probably obsessed, maybe, with watching these videos because it's understandable. You love that feeling of being validated finally. Oh my goodness, they're telling me exactly what I went through. They're sharing my story, and it feels really good if you're so used to being invalidated, gaslit, and told you are the problem and it's all your fault. It's no wonder people get addicted to watching this stuff because it's a good feeling to be validated. All of those things, though, they're part of stage 1. It's a completely normal thing, and that can last any length of time, really. And ideally, we won't stay there forever, of course. But feel the feelings. You got to feel it to heal it, they say. And if you feel sadness, you let yourself feel the sadness. You get angry, you let yourself feel the anger. All normal things. And that's why I don't like when somebody says, you're angry, that's how you know you're not healed. Or you're resentful towards the narcissist, that's how you know you're not healed. Unhelpful. They might get there at some point, but it's one of those things that technically true, but not helpful. But stage 2. Once you've learned all about narcissism, you've probably been addicted to the videos, etc. You know the terms, understand what you've been through, you've developed a little bit of a belief in yourself, you've learned to trust your reality a little bit. Then you might take a look at your side and you think, okay, what did I do in this relationship? What could I have done better? And some people might say, oh, there's nothing you could have done better. And I don't necessarily agree with them. I think there's always something that we could do better, even if it was just have better boundaries, or learn how to recognize red flags better, or More often, people know how to recognize the red flags, but then they don't know how to act on them and get to the bottom of them. Or maybe sometimes people just weren't happy and single. They didn't know how to be okay on their own, and it pushed them to look past the red flags because they didn't want to feel lonely. They were lonely on their own, so they settled for something that they knew probably wasn't the best, but they didn't want to be alone, so they did it. But all of these things are things to look at. And again, more than one thing can be true at the same time. We can take a look at our side, and it doesn't mean it was our fault. We didn't deserve how we were treated, but both of those things can be true at the same time. And I don't like people weaponizing this stage 2 concept, though, for people who are in stage 1. I don't like that. Please don't do that in any of my pages. People go in these steps for a reason. And when I'm trying to help people, it does matter what stage they're in. Because what I would say to somebody in stage 2 or 3 would not be what I say to somebody in stage 1. And that's why I dislike it when people weaponize things that are technically true, because they're not ready for it yet. These things take time. And I'm all for validating in stage 1, building up people's belief in themselves, not until stage 2. And that might take 6 months, 9 months, a year. There is no cut and dry time frame. But eventually we begin to look at those things, learn about building our belief in ourselves, noticing the red flags, acting on the red flags, building a life that we love. Those are all stage 2 concepts. And then finally, after we do that, stage 3 is finding a way to be the happiest and healthiest version of ourselves today. Letting go of resentment if we have them towards the abusive person. That doesn't necessarily mean forgive either. And either way, forgiveness does not mean letting someone back in your life. Forgiveness, or some people might say acceptance. Acceptance might be a better way to say it. But when we accept what happened to us, and I highly recommend people looking at things in a way that helps us to be the happiest and healthiest version of ourselves today. Because what other way would we want to look at it? If we want to live the best life today, how would we look at that? And I recommend looking at it in a way that helps you to do that, whatever that is. And sometimes it helps to understand where they came from, why maybe they turned out the way they did. And I think learning about narcissism can help in this regard too, where, okay, their NPD or abusive behaviors were a trauma response, not an excuse, but an explanation. And that's also not to say that you should let them back into your life either. Not at all. But I'm just saying it can help us let go of resentment and help us with our acceptance. And ideally, we don't do any of that for them, not because they deserve it, but because we want to live our best life today. We don't want to be weighed down by resentment, because that's what it is. When we keep on looking back and are annoyed about the past, we are letting them rob us of peace and happiness today. And I don't want that for anybody. But these are the 3 stages here. Stage 1, learning to validate yourself, trust your gut, trust your intuition, learning all about narcissism, feeling all of the feelings, the anger, the shock, the resentment, the sadness, all of it. Feel it all. Feeling it to healing it. And then stage 2, looking at your side of it a little bit. What could you have done better? That's why I came up with the term radical self-respect, because when I asked myself that question, what could I have done better? Practice radical self-respect was my answer. And then stage 3, accepting what happened and letting go of resentment. And if it's forgiveness for you, it's forgiveness, but I think acceptance and letting go of resentment is just as important, just a good way to put it, if not for that term, right? Accepting and letting go of resentment accomplishes the same thing, in my opinion. But those are the 3 stages, and I don't like people weaponizing stage 3 concepts or stage 2 concepts against people who are in stage 1. I don't find that to be helpful. But I do think it's helpful to learn about these stages. And eventually, people should probably stop watching the content, or at least stop obsessively watching, because there comes a point where it could keep us stuck in the past a little bit. And I don't think that would be helpful either. Watch, learn, stay up to date so you don't forget, and it can be surprising how quickly some people can forget sometimes, but watch as a refresher occasionally, but then live your life. And hopefully, and that's what I want to do too, I want to focus on the other parts of life on this channel too, not just avoiding the toxic behaviors and learning about them, which is interesting. It is interesting, and it's very validating learning about all of them for sure, but it's only a fraction. The rest of it is kicking butt in our lives today. But that's my video for today. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And let's talk about it in the comments section here. What are your thoughts? What stage are you in? What are your recommendations for people in each stages? That's what I'd love to hear. With that, thank you very much for watching and have a great rest of your day.